There's my little clicker. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan, and yes, I'm technically the president. However, it doesn't mean a whole lot. I do a lot of brewing, accounting, tour giving, beer pouring, mopping. It's really not all that glorious. So when we brew beer, we're working with 4 basic ingredients. It's water, hops, yeast, and some kind of fermentable grain like barley, oats, rye, malt. And when we're going to brew a batch of beer, we'll get to the brewery bright and early, and we'll start with our first ingredient, which is malted barley. We'll measure out all this grain, pour it into a great big mill, which grinds it up into a rough flour. That flour is pumped up into a tank called the mash tun, and in there we mix it with hot water, effectively making a giant batch of oatmeal. That hot water activates these little enzymes, though, that convert the starches into sugars. This process takes a couple hours. Then we'll extract just a liquid component called wort, W-O-R-T, and transfer it to another kettle where we'll boil it. Once that liquid is out of the mash tun, we'll scoop out all the spent grain, and then we give that spent grain to Beach Plum Farm in West Cape May. They use it to feed their pigs and chickens, and then serve those pigs and chickens for dinner at the Virginia Hotel. But wait, the plot thickens, because we're on tap at the Virginia Hotel. So if you go there, you'll get a beer that was made with the grain that was used to feed the chicken that's on your plate for dinner with your beer. It's this sick and twisted circle of life that's going on. We now add our next ingredient, which are hops. Hops grow on these great big vines, and on these vines there is a flower and inside that flower is an oil called lupulin. And that's what we use to brew beer. It does 3 things for us. It provides flavor, bitterness, and aroma, and we add it at different times and in varying amounts to achieve our hop profile. Some of you may also notice it looks an awful lot like marijuana, and that's because it's related, but it lacks the good stuff or the bad stuff, depending on where you lie on that issue. But remember, flavor, bitterness, and aroma. Now we have our hops boiling with the wort. This process takes another couple hours. After that, we'll chill it down rapidly and put it into one of our fermenters, and there we add our final ingredient, which is yeast. So this yeast will take the sugars, we convert it from the starches, and turns that into ethyl alcohol and CO2. The yeast will impart some of its own flavor, then the beer will clear out naturally, it'll carbonate naturally, and after 3 weeks, we got beer. From there, we'll keg it and take it over to one of our accounts. That's it. That's how beer is made. But beer is special because it's the common denominator for folks. We don't meet after work for a Shirley Temple. We meet for a beer. And why do we do that? Some of you are thinking it's the alcohol. And you're right, but you're only part of the way there. You see, beer is an adult beverage. That's not so high in alcohol that leaves you wincing or drunk. It's something to be enjoyed in moderation that refreshes the body and relaxes the spirit. And in this way, it nurtures the soul. What do many folks do when they come home after work? I know I like to have a beer, and it's not just because I make the stuff for a living. It relaxes us and takes us to a different place. And keep in mind, the beer that I'm talking about is not that yellow fizzy stuff. Craft beer today is not Dad's Budweiser. Over the past couple decades, American craft brewers have made great strides in producing exciting and flavorful beer. German beers once held the rank as the world's best beer. Today, the world admires the craft beer scene in the US, and rightfully so. American brewers are breaking boundaries and going way past the light lagers. They're brewing full-bodied beers that blend styles, spices, and flavors like a honey porter or apple bomb. And people want to learn about how these beers are made. And the breweries are just like their owners, quirky and eclectic, and many people enjoy the experience of visiting these places, which is what our business is all about, brewery tourism. People want to see where these beers are coming from, or perhaps they're getting as close as they can to the enjoyment that they experience when they have a glass of their favorite beer at home. And that, I think, is an idea we're spreading.